Welcome back. I'm Alan Brooks.
And I'm Brad Winkleski.
Brad, today we're going to talk about what I think is a important topic for folks to understand how equipment, hardware gets into the market. You know, for a lot of folks, they think, hey, I need a piece of IBM equipment. Well, I'll go to an IBM reseller or somebody with an IBM banner, and they'll buy it and they'll buy it directly from IBM. Right. But that's not the case. And there's this life cycle of how equipment gets into the market. It always starts with a manufacturer, somebody making something. So tell us what a manufacturer is.
Yeah, they literally just do that. Whether it's hardware, software, whatever it happens to be, they actually they are the means of production for producing the piece of hardware, producing the software, and then all updates to that software, whatever it is. But they're the ones that actually, as you said, actually have put their hands to something and made that widget.
And that's what they're really good at. They're really good at affecting, cost-cutting savings and efficiency savings and factory. They've made a factory and they've gained efficiencies all through the thing. What they're not good at is distribution. They're not as good at warehousing this stuff, moving this stuff. So that leads us to the next topic. There's a whole nother segment or a whole nother layer called distribution. And these guys just do that, right? They have these big, huge warehouses, and actually let me have you tell what distribution is.
Yeah, so just like in the soda industry, as you said, you have the product, but then the bottling of that, and then the facilitation of that, and then the delivery of that belongs to somebody else. I mean, in the same way, in the technology channel, the person, as you said, that initially warehouses all the parts to make these servers or these things, the acceptance of that order, and then the sequencing, the synchronization, and the delivery of that thing after it's been actually put together, that belongs to a distributor.
Yeah.
And
I think it's kind of cool to make people, as an example, to use the car industry. No Allen goes and buys straight from GM, right? GM sells their cars through a channel of experts that are known as car dealers that do that really well. They service and sell cars really well. Well, technology has a distribution layer across it, and they do that very, very well. What happens next is a layer below distribution called a VAR, or a reseller of some sort. And distribution does a good job of controlling, I guess, the education of the VAR, controlling the compliance of the VAR. But a VAR is a value-added reseller. Tell us what a VAR is.
Yeah, it works best if you just look at the word for what it is. The words are what they are. So it is not just a reseller, somebody that takes something that costs $1 and sells it for $2.
Yeah.
But it literally is somebody that brings value to the transaction. So if you're buying a hardware or a piece of hardware, if you're buying some sort of solution software, whatever that happens to be, they add value to that transaction by either project managing the delivery, they participate in whatever actual upgrade is needed to actually put that into production, or say there's some migration services needed, so anything like that, that is the value that they add to that transaction.
And here again, they're usually good sales and service delivery companies. They're usually the guy at the front line understanding the need of the user. Again, what distribution doesn't do very well. And what you see distribution doing more and more and manufacturing doing more and more is coming up with messaging and these visions on what they think the VAR should do. But at the end of the day, the VAR is sort of the point of impact most of the time. It's where I'm a guy and I've found a need that this customer has, and I'm going to sell this product. A lot of folks, Brad, seem to think that retailers buy directly from manufacturers. And it's important when we talk about this, we're not talking about a 100% thing. There's some manufacturers that sell direct all the way down, especially in the PC world. But I'm talking about most business line, business critical level equipment comes in through this manner. But do retailers, do they buy directly from the manufacturers?
As you said, there are definitely exceptions, but if you really do go to Circuit City when they're around, but Best Buy, Target, these places that have these technology type of equipment, if you look at where they actually get their stuff, they get it from the exact same place that VARs do, and that's through a channel of some sort. And but when you say like, well, hey, why is this thing $4 here and you're trying to sell it to me for $5? Well, you got to imagine that volume matters, right? And so you look at these big box stores, you look at these folks that are just enormous, and as you said, they've either bought enough quantity to get that discount, or quite honestly, they've said, I'm willing to take a bath on this product just to get it in to sell it at cost, so that I have a customer, or so that I can get the service on top of that myself or whatever. And so, but as you said, 9 times out of 10, they're buying it from the exact same place we are. And in fact, there's technologies that exist out there now as far as how these things even get listed electronically on people's websites, so that you don't really even have to keep stock whatsoever on anything. Again, there's like an electronic hook that you go pull it from your distribution partner, and it just adds up that whatever your margin happens to be or what your costing is. And so again, it's basically all coming from the same place.
I think it's worth mentioning. You use the word Circuit City, and this just goes to prove why all these people are. Because forever I would say, why doesn't IBM or these manufacturers just sell direct? It's because they're not good at that. And you mentioned maybe one of the best retailers of all time was Circuit City. I mean, I used to go in there back years ago, and there was knowledgeable sales reps. They had lots of stuff. They went out of business because they shifted their core competency to cars and to different stuff, which is another story. But I thought it led in really well to why does manufacturer just manufacture and try to affect, the mean time between failure and the asymptote? And distribution, why do they just distribute? And VARs, why should they just sell, right? Because these are their core competencies. And then retailers are basically a VAR with a building or a store that's sitting there. There's another cool thing that happens. Stuff sits on the shelf in either a retailer or distribution, and then it becomes, overstock. It goes into a wholesaler situation. So tell us about a wholesaler.
Yeah, so as you said, wholesalers, they will literally take either maybe last year's model, they'll take something that, as you said, is overstock or whatever the case happens to be. They can either take those types of things, or they can take something that is that went out on demonstration, perhaps a whole, basically one whole lot of endpoints that went out for some sort of demonstration or a short-term lease or something. Yeah. They come back and get reconditioned by the manufacturer. Well, that can't come through that traditional channel, so somebody could say, dude, I will take a risk on those units, right? And buy them for 5-10 cents on the dollar, and I'll go resell them in some way. And so those brokers and wholesalers, they basically, it's kind of a niche market they work in. As you said, but at the same time, those guys bring a very specific need, because they're almost like a hybrid of the distro and the VAR, and they can do a little bit of everything, right? They can survive in there. And the most interesting thing about them is that they don't have just one place they're playing specifically, so they could perhaps sell that product to maybe a VAR. They could sell it directly to an end user. They could sell it to another broker in the community there. And so they have their survival skills of figuring out where they can actually get rid of product that they just took a risk on is kind of where they bring the most value.
And boy, that's very well said. There's no rules there. There's no compliance rules. There's no anything. It's sort of like a used car lot a little bit, right? There's no MSRP, throw it out the window, right? I mean, none of that matters. But brokers are very, very important. Why? Because they provide they provide the market end of life stuff. They typically have stuff a lot of times when the manufacturer's out or distribution's out. I mean, so they keep a lot of the market propped up. And I'll tell you this too, because of the mere nature of what they have to do, I find that the brokers have more experience, more product knowledge than almost all the other guys all the way up through the chain, because they find a niche, they find a specific thing, and they become a master at Cisco, they become a master at IBM. And
And one of the other interesting things about them is because they do have those relationships directly with the manufacturer many times, they can take those, as you said, specialty products, end of life sort of, and they can engage those guys to put some sort of warranty, like not just a third party warranty, but a manufacturer type of warranty on those types of things. And so, as you said, that is definitely one of the values they bring.